5 Reddit stories that will take you on an emotional roller coaster ride. I hope you enjoy. My dad died, then came back. So if this gets messy, I'm sorry, cause it's not my story, it's my dad's. My entire life I grew up knowing my dad hated the beach. He had gotten stung by a jellyfish and it hurt him, and that was the extent of the story I knew up until a few weeks ago. Come to find out, my dad got stung by a Portuguese man-of-war. Now if you don't know what that is, it's a massive jellyfish. Its tentacles can reach up to 165 feet. Yeah, it's massive. It's also practically invisible in the water and can still sting you after it's dead. Now onto the story. My dad was around 16 years old when my grandpa took him and his sisters to the Virginia beach. All around the beach were signs warning people that these animals were in the water. My dad had told them he didn't want to go in because of them and that he'll just stay on the beach. My aunts weren't happy with that, so they begged and begged him to go, so he gave in. I'm not sure how long they were there, but suddenly my aunt saw a man run out of the water and start rolling in the sand. They got out and ran over to him and found my dad rolling. The man-of-war had completely wrapped itself around my dad. Which isn't normal for them. They usually sting once and leave. The damage, although hurts, but are pretty minor. They all packed up and my dad was running back and forth like a madman. They were going to take him to a clinic to make sure everything was all well, but didn't think much of what had happened. I mean, it's just a jellyfish, right? Yeah, that's obviously not the case here. On their way to the clinic, my dad started to become lethargic and eventually they saw his eyes roll into the back of his head. Immediately they knew he was in cardiac arrest. My aunt threw back his seat and my grandpa started banging on his chest and sped to the hospital. Where they were out, though, there was one of the bridges that goes up and down, and the bridge was up. My grandpa sped towards the CVS down the road and ran in to go ask where the nearest clinic/hospital was for this area. They told him where it was and it wasn't too far from the bridge. My grandpa sped out of the parking lot, still pounding my dad's chest, running through the road barriers etc. to get my dad help. My aunts were in the back of the car screaming, crying and praying for the Lord to save him. They said that they saw my dad take his last breath and could tell he was going to die. At the same time this is happening to my family, there was another group of people leaving the beach they were also at. They were a group of teenagers who had gotten drunk and had a good day at the beach. They decided to leave the beach and they were all still drunk. Drunk driving. As my grandpa was flying to the closest clinic, the van of teenagers blew their stop sign and T-boned my family's car. They spun around and flipped. When my aunts woke up they were screaming. My grandpa was outside of the car with no shoes on trying to move it. Can't remember why, something to do with the bridge. My dad wasn't in the car anymore and nobody could find him for a while. When the EMTs got my dad, miraculously my dad's heart was beating again. When they got to the hospital, finally the doctor explained to them that had the car accident not happened my dad had no chance of surviving. There would have been no chance of them even reviving him at the clinic. He had gone through the windshield and the shock and adrenaline from that started his heart again. My dad was in the hospital for a while trying to heal. His wounds from the man-of-war were already bad enough. They were welted and just bad. Look them up, it's nasty. He was in a lot of pain and the chances of dying from one of these is incredibly rare, but here he is, haha. Although my dad survived, sadly one of the guy in the van didn't. As a religious person I'll never understand why my dad was saved but another's wasn't. There's this story, I hope I told it well. My sister is a ducking demon and is making my life a living hell. I would just joke with her and she would make up a crime scene. For example, yesterday she asked me to help her with a math exercise. When I saw what it was I told her that this is the easiest thing ever. And when I told her what did she think the answer was, she said something even dumber. So I gave her the answer and then tapped her skull with my finger asking her to use her brain next time. So she acted like I hit her with a ducking hammer. Today after lunch, I was asked to clean the table. My sister was doing her homework next to the dining table while singing and moving her body, although it's been years asking her to shut up while working to focus. Her grades are dogshit. So while cleaning the table I picked a little grape seed and threw it on her head so she would shut the hell up and focus on her sheet. And oh my god, I regret doing that. Her overreaction to that was something else. She started screaming like she was going to die and saying what if that seed got into her ear and ducking killed her. Even if Kobe tried that on purpose he would fail, RIP Kobe. And this is where the problem started. My father got so angry I think I've never seen him insult his son and daughter like today. Now my dad is pissed at me thinking I tried to murder his poor daughter. And let me tell something, this shit happens every week. I tried to avoid any conversation with her before after putting me in similar positions, but it would only make my dad even angrier. WTF am I supposed to do? Oh, the things I'll do to preserve my masculinity. I'm in the backseat of my car wrapping my arm in t-shirts to make it look like it's a cast, so when roadside assistance shows up to fix my flat, I'll be able to tell the man, probably a strong-looking man, that I know how to do it, that I know how to use the jack and do the thing with the bolts and change a bad tire. It's just that my arm is broken. And with that, he won't see a 27-year-old kid, but rather a man bound by an injury, and I'll shrug off the sympathy, and say, I've broken bigger and stronger bones before, and I'll try to reach for the toolbox that I keep in the trunk for this very performance. Yes, here's how it'll go. I'll reach for it to show him that even now, with the help of a capable body, I haven't given up neither effort nor pride, and I'll wince a bit, but not too much, because if men are bonded by one thing, it's pain and how we deal with it. And it's none of his business or mine what the pain actually is, a broken arm or an insecurity. What matters is that we hurt and we limp along. He'll tell me to relax, nod to the curb like he's offering me the best recliner in his house, the one reserved for his one day off, the one close enough to a table to set a beer, far enough from where the kid rolls a toy tractor across the carpet, between the kitchen where his wife cooks and the TV where his football team wins the coin toss. I'll first shake my head no and say that I like to stand, but in time, I'll open up to his kind offer, as I've seen even the toughest men do, and I'll sit and stare ahead, and I'll do some nodding of my own, a gesture of approval, as if to say, while watching him work with parts I can't name and with hands I can't relate to, that's right. Just like that. That's exactly how I would do it. My grandma almost burned down because of me. This story sounds too crazy to be true, but unfortunately that's exactly what happened. Because of this, I received threatening messages for a long time, was in the newspaper and was also arrested for a short time. I went for a walk with my grandma like I did every day. She is in a wheelchair, so I always push her. To this day I love spending time with my grandma. She is my best friend. That day we went for a walk the same way we always did. We lit a cigarette and talked. On our way there is a street intersection that we have to cross, where it goes steeply down to the right. My cell phone kept ringing, so I eventually answered it. It was a good friend of mine. She said she saw my boyfriend at the time walking in the park with another woman. I freaked out and moved about 10 meters away from my grandma. To this day I can confidently say that I left her in a safe position. I was turned away from her and was only focused on my friend's voice. I heard my grandma saying in the background, "Honey, I think you have to help me." I didn't respond to it. Suddenly I heard her scream, "Darling, I'm rolling down." I turned around in a panic and saw her rolling down the street with the cigarette in her mouth. The wheels were too fast to stop. I had to watch her drive into a gas station pump at about 50 miles. There was a loud bang and her wheelchair flew around 3 meters into the air. Her cigarette started a fire and I saw my grandmother start to burn, unconscious. I ran as fast as I could, but before I even got there, a gas station employee put out the fire with a fire extinguisher. She was in the hospital for many weeks and I fell into depression. Today she's fine again, but I still feel very guilty. She had a guardian angel. Just the impact was deadly and inexplicable. Today I also went for a walk with her but avoided the intersection. I feel guilty for being depressed. I feel like I need to get this out of my chest. Ever since I moved out for college, I've been isolated and lonely. I do have friends, but I'm mostly very close with my family, but now all of them are living 3 hours away. My father gets paid minimum wage if he works overtime, and I work in order to pay my tuition. Lately, I've been having irrational depressive thoughts due to the loneliness. Last weekend when I visited my parents, I forgot how much I was loved and felt so guilty when I found an album with a lot of pictures ranging from baby me to the present me. My dad took most of them. Looking at those pictures of little me hanging out with my dad made me tear up because of how guilty I felt. And recently, I was talking to my mother because I wanted to start selling prints, pins, and stickers as another side job to pay for my tuition. She was happy and told my dad. Not even after 2 minutes, I receive a call from my dad. He was still working, but he was all excited, telling me how he wanted to get me a printer and materials for me to sell my art. I immediately broke down when he said that he couldn't stop smiling because the thought of people buying my art and appreciating it made him happy. He said that he was my #1 supporter and that he will definitely get me those expensive materials. I told him that it was not necessary, that I could buy it with my own money, but he replied to that and said that's why he's working. But what worried me is that he's also paying for my tuition. I don't want him to overwork himself. The words that he told me today definitely hit me so hard. I forgot how much he cared about me and how amazing he is. He couldn't stop giggling on the call as he was telling me how excited he was for me to start selling my art, since I liked doing art since I was a baby. I can't stop feeling guilty for even thinking of depressive stuff. I don't deserve my amazing dad. Congratulations if you have made it this far. Comment down below which story was your favorite. If you like the stories, then consider subscribing for more. It means a lot. As always, thanks for watching.